Hi there. Welcome back to Haunting Veils. Tonight's mystery begins with an object older than memory, and a secret worth killing for. The heirloom once belonged to a wealthy Byzantine merchant, passed down through generations, until it vanished without a trace. Years later, its sudden reappearance in a London drawing room coincided with a death no one could explain. No sign of theft. No forced entry. Only a single guest who knew far too much about the past. When Hercule Poirot is called to investigate, he uncovers a trail of ancient grudges, forged documents, and a truth buried deeper than the merchant's own grave. Because some treasures are priceless not for what they're worth, but for the secrets they protect. Before we follow the trail of the lost heirloom, don't forget to subscribe for more chilling Hercule Poirot mysteries. Chapter 1: The Merchant's Silent Legacy. The rain fell with deliberate patience, as though the sky itself wished to linger over the city and hear its secrets. It struck the pavement in soft, repeating rhythms, blurring the gaslit streets into wavering reflections. Carriages passed slowly, their wheels hissing through shallow water, drivers hunched beneath cloaks heavy with damp. London, under such rain, became a place of murmurs rather than voices, of thoughts rather than declarations. Inside the narrow townhouse on Balfour Street, the air was warm and still. The fire burned low, its glow flickering across shelves of well-kept books and polished brass ornaments. At the center of the room sat Hercule Poirot, upright in his chair, hands folded neatly, eyes half closed in thought. He was not asleep. He was listening to the rain, listening to the house, listening to something far quieter than sound. A knock came at the door. It was not loud. It was not hurried. Yet it carried an urgency that could not be mistaken. Poirot opened his eyes at once. "That," he said softly, "is a knock from someone who carries trouble but wishes not to disturb the furniture." Moments later, the visitor was shown in. The man removed his hat with careful hands, as though unsure where to place it once it left his grasp. He was tall, lean to the point of sharpness, his dark coat cut well, but worn at the cuffs. His face bore the lines of travel and worry, and his eyes, deep-set and watchful, seemed never to rest on any one object for long. "My name is Adrian Marcos," the man said. His voice was steady, but only just. "I was told you are the person to see when something precious disappears, and when its disappearance threatens to destroy what remains of the family." Poirot gestured to the chair opposite him. "Please, seat, and tell me everything. Slowly. Nothing important ever arrives in a hurry." Marcos sat and placed his hat carefully on his knee, as if afraid it might vanish if he let it go. "My grandfather was a merchant," he began. "Not merely a trader of goods, but of routes, alliances, and information. He dealt in silk, glass, spices, and rare artifacts that passed from east to west long before borders had names. Our family fortune began with him." Poirot nodded slightly. "A man who understood the value of movement," he said. "Such men often leave complicated inheritances." "Yes," Marcos replied. "He left us one object above all others. An heirloom, ancient, valuable beyond price. It had been in his possession for decades, passed to my father, and meant to pass to me." He paused, then spoke again with effort. "It is gone." The fire cracked softly. Poirot did not speak at once. He observed the man's hands, noting the tension in the fingers and the faint tremor that followed the admission. "Tell me about this heirloom," Poirot said at last. "Not what it is worth. Tell me what it means." Marcos swallowed. "It is a medallion," he said. "Gold. Heavy. Marked with symbols older than our family records. My grandfather claimed it once belonged to a merchant guild that thrived during the height of a long-fallen empire. He believed it represented not wealth alone, but legitimacy, authority, proof of right. To what? Poirot asked. To claim succession, Marcos said quietly. To claim leadership within certain private circles that still exist today. Circles that trade not only in goods, but influence. Poirot leaned back slightly. So we are not discussing theft alone, he said. We are discussing inheritance and power. Yes, Marcos replied. My father intended to formally name me as heir next month. The medallion was to be presented then before witnesses. Without it, I am nothing. Or worse, a pretender. When did it vanish? Poirot asked. 3 nights ago, Marcos said, from a locked strongbox in my father's study. There are no signs of forced entry. No broken locks. No missing papers. Only the medallion. Poirot's eyes sharpened. And who knew it was there? Marcos hesitated. My father, myself, and 3 others. Names, Poirot said gently. My uncle, Leonidas Marcos. My father's younger brother. A man of charm and ambition. Then there is Helena, my cousin. She is clever and observant. She believes the heirloom should belong to her branch of the family. And lastly, our family solicitor, Mr. Edwin Hale. He has managed our affairs for years. Poirot nodded, committing each name to memory with care. For people, he said. For opportunities. But tell me, Mr. Marcos, which of them has the most to lose if you inherit? Marcos's jaw tightened. All of them, he said, in different ways. The rain outside intensified, drumming harder against the windows. Poirot stood and moved toward the mantelpiece, studying the arrangement of objects upon it. Nothing was out of place, yet everything seemed deliberate. You have not come to me only for recovery, Poirot said without turning. You have come because you fear what the loss of this object will awaken. Marcos rose slightly from his chair. Yes, he said, there are whispers already. People who should not know are asking questions. If the medallion appears in the wrong hands, it could fracture alliances that have held for generations. Poirot turned, his expression calm but intent. Then we must find not only where it has gone, he said, but why it chose this moment to disappear. Later that evening, Poirot arrived at the Marcos residence. It was a grand house, but not ostentatious. Stone walls, tall windows, an air of quiet authority rather than display. Inside, the corridors carried the faint scent of old wood and ink. The study was exactly as described. Shelves of ledgers and maps. A heavy desk positioned to catch the afternoon light. And beside it, the strongbox. Poirot crouched before it, examining the lock with meticulous attention. No force, he murmured. No haste. Whoever opened this did so with confidence. He rose and surveyed the room. His gaze lingered on the chairs, the desk, the shelves. A thief in a hurry takes what he can, Poirot said softly to himself. A thief with purpose takes only what he must. Footsteps approached. Adrian Marcos entered quietly. My uncle insists the medallion must have been misplaced, he said. He says my father was growing forgetful. Poirot's eyes flicked toward him. And do you believe that? No, Marcos replied. My father remembered every detail of his accounts until the end. Poirot nodded. Memory is often blamed when ambition wishes to hide. He walked to the window and looked out into the rain-darkened garden. Tell me, Poirot said, did your father ever express doubt about his choice of heir? Marcos hesitated. He argued with my uncle often, he admitted. Leonidas believed experience mattered more than bloodline. He wanted control until his death. Poirot smiled faintly. A familiar argument, he said. Age against succession. Stability against renewal. He turned back. Do not worry, Mr. Marcos, Poirot said calmly. Objects such as this medallion do not simply vanish. They leave trails, not of footprints perhaps, but of thought. of motive. The fire crackled in the hearth behind them. And I, Poirot added, am very good at following thoughts. Outside, the rain continued its patient descent, unaware that within the walls of the Marcos household, the first threads of a long-hidden design were already being drawn into the light. And somewhere, unseen and waiting, the merchant's silent legacy lay in the hands of someone who believed time itself had finally turned in their favor. Chapter 2. Shadows Around the Heirloom. Morning arrived at the Marcos residence without warmth. The rain had ceased, but it left behind a gray sky that pressed low over the city, as though unwilling to let go of the night's secrets. Inside the house, servants moved quietly, their footsteps softened by thick carpets and unspoken tension. News of the missing heirloom had not been announced openly. It traveled through the halls in whispers and careful glances. Hercule Poirot stood alone in the study, his hands clasped behind his back as he surveyed the room once more. In daylight, it revealed details hidden by lamplight. Fine scratches on the desk's edge, a faint discoloration near the wall where a painting once hung and had been moved recently, then returned. Small things, easily dismissed, yet rarely accidental. Poirot believed that truth preferred daylight, even when it hid from it. Leonidas Marcos entered without knocking. He carried himself with confidence, his posture straight, his expression composed, but his eyes held a restless brightness that never quite settled. He wore mourning black, though the cut of his coat suggested more concern for appearance than sorrow. "You wish to see me," Leonidas said. "I assume this is about the so-called disappearance." Poirot turned slowly. "I wish to hear your thoughts," he replied. "Disappearance is often a matter of perspective." Leonidas smiled thinly. "My brother was careless toward the end," he said. "He trusted objects more than people. He believed symbols could protect power. I warned him they could not." "Yet you were aware of the medallion," Poirot said, "aware of its significance." "Of course," Leonidas replied. "I grew up with its legend. Every family gathering, every whispered argument returned to that wretched piece of gold. It divided us more than it united us." "And you believe it should no longer decide succession," Poirot said. "I believe blood alone should not," Leonidas answered. "Experience matters. Stability matters. Adrian is young." Poirot regarded him carefully. "Yet youth is often the reason legacies survive," he said. "Old hands sometimes cling too tightly." Leonidas's smile faded. "You imply ambition," he said. "Impli motive," Poirot replied calmly. Leonidas scoffed and turned away, pacing the room. "If I wanted the medallion," he said, "I would not hide it like a common thief. I would claim it openly." "Interesting," Poirot said. "And how would you explain its absence?" Leonidas stopped. "I would say it was never meant to be the deciding factor," he replied, "which I have said all along." Poirot nodded, as though satisfied. "Thank you," he said. "Your honesty is instructive." Leonidas left with a stiff nod, the door closing firmly behind him. Not an hour later, Helena Marcos arrived. Unlike her uncle, she knocked first. She was composed, her dark hair pulled back neatly, her gaze sharp and curious. She studied Poirot openly, as if he were another object to be examined. "You are smaller than I expected," she said. Poirot smiled. "Appearances often disappoint," he replied. "Please sit." Helena remained standing. "I assume you believe someone in this house took the medallion," she said. "I believe someone who knew its value did," Poirot answered. "Then you should consider me," she said without hesitation. "I wanted it." Poirot raised an eyebrow. "That is a bold confession," he said. "Not a confession," Helena replied. "A statement of desire. Desire is not guilt. I believe the heirloom belonged to my father's line, not Adrian's. I made that clear to my uncle and my cousin." "And yet you did not take it," Poirot said. "No," she replied. Because taking it would weaken my claim. I want authority, not secrecy. Poirot studied her face. You are honest, he said. But honesty can also be strategic. Helena smiled faintly. Of course, she said. Everything is strategic. She left shortly after, her footsteps light but purposeful. The last to arrive was Edwin Hale, the family solicitor. He was a careful man, precise in speech and movement, his spectacles perched low on his nose. He carried a leather case filled with documents and an air of practiced concern. This situation is most unfortunate, Hale said. The timing could not be worse. For whom? Poirot asked. For everyone, Hale replied quickly. The family, the business partners, the private counsels that recognize the heirloom's authority. Poirot leaned forward. You are very well informed, he said. It is my duty, Hale replied. I advised your client's father for years. I knew where the medallion was kept. And you had access, Poirot said. Haste. Only in a professional capacity, he said. I never opened the strongbox. Poirot watched him closely. Then you know who could, he said. Yes, Hale replied. Anyone with the key, or anyone who knew where the spare was hidden. Poirot's eyes sharpened. There was a spare key, he said. Hale hesitated for the briefest moment. Yes, he admitted. For emergencies. It was kept behind the ledger shelf. Poirot thanked him and dismissed him. When the house fell quiet again, Poirot remained in the study, his mind assembling the fragments he had gathered. Each suspect carried motive. Each carried restraint. Yet one thing troubled him. The theft lacked haste. That evening, Poirot requested that Adrian Marcos join him in the garden. The air was cool, the ground still damp beneath their shoes. Statues loomed among trimmed hedges, their stone faces weathered by time. You trust your solicitor, Poirot said as they walked. Idole, Adrian replied. He has served us faithfully. And yet, Poirot said, he knows more about the medallion's authority than any outsider. Adrian frowned. You think he took it? I think, Poirot said, that someone believes the heirloom should decide more than family matters. Someone who profits from balance rather than ownership. They stopped near a fountain, its water still. The medallion, Poirot continued, was not stolen to be sold. It was taken to be used, or withheld. Adrian's face darkened. To force negotiation, he said. Exactly, Poirot replied. And that suggests patience. Control. Someone comfortable operating in shadows. Adrian exhaled slowly. Then what do we do? Poirot turned back toward the house. We wait, he said, because whoever holds the heirloom will make a move. Power unused is power wasted. As night fell, a message arrived. A sealed envelope delivered by hand, without return address. Inside was a single sentence, written in careful ink. The legacy remains intact, but only if the heir understands restraint. Poirot read it twice. Then he smiled just slightly. Now, he said to himself, we begin. Chapter 3. The heirloom reveals its master. The envelope lay open on the desk, its single sentence already burned into every mind present in the room. The study felt smaller now, as though the walls themselves had leaned inward to listen. Lamps cast steady light, but shadows gathered stubbornly in the corners, refusing to retreat. Hercule Poirot stood at the center, calm and composed, his hands resting lightly upon the back of a chair. Adrian Marcos sat opposite him, rigid with tension. Leonidas Marcos leaned against the mantel, arms crossed, his expression one of practiced patience. Helena stood near the window, watching reflections rather than faces. Edwin Hale occupied the far end of the room, clutching his leather case as if it were a shield. This message, Poirot said, was meant to frighten you. But more importantly, it was meant to instruct. Leonidas laughed softly. A clever trick, he said. Anonymous threats are common when families quarrel. Poirot turned his gaze upon him. Not anonymous, he said. Anonymous letters conceal identity. This one reveals character. He lifted the page. The words speak of restraint, not fear. Of balance, not triumph. Whoever wrote this does not seek chaos. They seek control. Helena shifted slightly. And you know who that is, she said. Yes, Poirot replied. Ido. Silence settled heavily. Poirot began to pace slowly, each step deliberate. The medallion was not taken in anger, he said, nor in desperation. There was no forced entry, no disorder, no attempt to disguise the act. This tells us the person felt entitled to take it. Entitlement is not born of greed alone. It is born of belief. He stopped beside the strongbox. Only one among you believes the heirloom exists to preserve equilibrium rather than inheritance. Only one benefits from delaying succession rather than claiming it. Poirot turned toward Edwin Hale. The solicitor stiffened. That is absurd, Hale said quickly. I serve the family. I have no claim. On ownership, no, Poirot said. But on influence, yes. Hale shook his head. I advise, he said. I do not rule. Yet you are the keeper of knowledge, Poirot replied. You understand the private counsels, the agreements that depend upon continuity. A sudden transfer of authority threatens instability. Instability threatens your careful architecture. Leonidas frowned. You accuse him without proof, he said. Poirot smiled faintly. On the contrary, he said, the proof is in what was not done. He gestured toward the shelves. If you wish to claim the medallion, you would announce its possession. If you wish to destroy its power, you would expose it. But if you wish to maintain leverage, you would hide it and speak only enough to remind others it still exists. Poirot held up the envelope. This message was not meant for Adrian alone. It was meant for all of you. A reminder that authority remains suspended. Hale's grip tightened on his case. You cannot prove I took it, he said. Poirot nodded. No, he said, but I can prove how you took it. He turned to Adrian. The spare key, Poirot said. Who suggested its placement behind the ledger shelf? Adrian's eyes widened. Mr. Hale, he said slowly. He said it was practical. Poirot continued. And who ensured the study was empty the evening of the disappearance, citing a review of documents that required privacy? Hale said nothing. And who benefits most from postponing the formal naming of an heir, allowing negotiations to resume under uncertainty? Poirot faced Hale fully now. You did not steal the heirloom to own it, Poirot said. You stole it to manage it. You believe yourself guardian of balance. But guardianship without consent is theft all the same. Hale's shoulders sagged. You do not understand, he said quietly. The councils would never accept a sudden shift. They fear youth. They fear change. And so you decided to decide for them, Poirot said. That is not service. That is control. Helena stepped forward. Where is it? She demanded. Hale closed his eyes. In a vault beneath the old exchange house, he said. Sealed. Safe. Leonidas exhaled sharply. You risked everything, he said. For order. Hale looked at Adrian. I intended to return it, he said. Once terms were agreed. Adrian rose slowly from his chair. You took my future and called it caution, he said. That is not protection. That is fear. Poirot nodded. The heirloom, he said, was never meant to delay succession. It was meant to mark it. He turned to Adrian. You must decide now, Poirot said. Will you claim it openly, or allow others to continue deciding for you? Adrian straightened. I will claim it, he said, and I will face the consequences openly. Poirot smiled, satisfied. The truth, he said, has a way of restoring balance without secrecy. Later that night, the medallion was retrieved. It emerged from darkness into lamplight, heavy and silent, bearing the weight of centuries and the ambitions of living men. When Adrian held it, there was no thunder, no declaration, only resolve. As Poirot prepared to leave, Adrian approached him. "You found more than a thief," Adrian said. "You found a fault in all of us." Poirot adjusted his coat. "Objects do not create power," he said. "They reveal who believes they deserve it." Outside, the city breathed again, unaware that a quiet war of inheritance had ended not with blood, but with truth. And as the door closed behind him, Hercule Poirot allowed himself a small smile. Another legacy restored, another shadow dispelled. If you enjoyed this mystery and wish to hear more tales where intellect triumphs over deception, do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps bring these stories to life, and many more mysteries await.